So the next thing we're going to do is construct the header using the header layout plugin. And what we'll be doing is we will be creating this header layout using rows and columns. And so in order to accomplish this, what we're going to be using here is we're going to be creating 2 rows with 2 columns each, plus a menu. So when you look at the whole page layout here, we have our content area, our header area, and this page is 1140 pixels wide. And this is actually the apparent width of the page. The actual width is going to be something perhaps slightly different than that. You don't have fine-tuned control over the width of a page in Thesis because the page width is defined as the widths of the columns plus certain multiples of the main font size for borders and padding. And so we're saying that the apparent page width is 1140 pixels wide. The actual page width is going to be something else. It may be exactly 1140, but it might be smaller, might be larger. We'll see what it shakes out to be when we're finished configuring everything. And as we set this up, we have to recognize that this header widget is going to, or this header layout is going to create those 2 columns inside of the header, which is inside of the header area. And so we need our header area to be 280 pixels tall. So that's what we're showing here. And in it, we're going to have a header row 1. And the first row will be 180 pixels tall. And then header row 2 will only be 40 pixels tall. And then below that, we'll have a menu, which will be 60 pixels tall. So those are the 3 sort of horizontal elements that we have that we'll be placing inside the Thesis header here. And that header area, that 220 pixels or 280 pixel tall header area, includes that entire space. So it includes the menu and the 2 rows. Now, our first row is going to have 2 columns. It's going to the first column is going to hold an image that makes the logo clickable. The second column is going to hold our widget area, in which we're going to place our AdSense ad widget. And then the second row is also going to have 2 columns. The first column is going to have a menu in it, and the second column is going to have the search bar in it. Now we're going to start off this series by showing how to place the Thesis search bar in here, but we'll follow up with a lesson on how to add a Google custom search in here instead, if that's what you want to do. That you'll do it differently. When we add the Thesis header in here, you'll just check the box saying, or when you add the Thesis search here, you'll just check a box saying include the Thesis search. However, when we use the Google code, what we're going to do is we'll check the box saying that we're going to widgetize this area. We won't actually put the search bar there, and then we'll put the custom code inside of a text widget to create the Google search box. So it's a slightly different mechanism to accomplish the same thing, which is a search over here in this column area. But in any case, we have 2 rows of 2 columns each. Each column is a different width, and each row is a different height. And so we'll just keep that open so we can come back and look at it. And so let's just go ahead and dive into that. So let's go ahead and select the header layout plugin. Now, the way the header layout plugin works is first you determine how many rows you want to create. So in this case, we're going to be creating 2 rows. So select 2 and then hit save. Now remember I said that we can specify up to 3 columns in each of those rows. So that's the next thing we're going to do. And in header row 1 settings, we're going to specify 2 columns. And then header row 2 settings, we'll also specify 2 columns. And then we hit save. And now you can see this little diagram here shows us that we've got 2 rows with 2 columns in each row. And at the moment, each of these is automatically defaults as a widget area. So if we come over and look at our widget areas, or our widgets, under Appearance and Widgets, whoops, I select Menus, Widgets. The plugin has now created these 4 widget areas or sidebars. We've got header row 1, widget column 1, header row 2, widget column 2, header row 2, widget column 1, and header row 2, widget column 2. Now I actually demonstrated this earlier, or practiced this presentation earlier, and so what happened is these widgets, pre-populated widgets that WordPress 3.3 retained, I'm going to actually get rid of those at the moment. So you have essentially 4 empty widget areas now that have been created. Now we actually don't want them all to be widget areas, so we're going to go modify this next. If we come over here to our header layouts, the next question that we want to answer is whether or not we're going to use any Thesis default header. Now we aren't going to use any of the Thesis default headers in this case. If we did check retain Thesis default header functions, then what we would next be requested to do is to select which row we want it in, and then which of the columns that we want it in. But we aren't going to do that now, so we can just uncheck that and hit save. So we're not going to use any Thesis default header. However, we are going to use a nav menu in the header. And so when we select this, we'll say yes, we'll include a navigation menu someplace within the header. And as you recall, that someplace is right here. We're going to put it right there. And then we're also going to place a search form somewhere in the header, so we can expand that and select that option because we're going to put it right here. And then we hit save. Now that it's there, or now that we've selected those things, we have the choice of deciding where we want it to be located. So we want this in header row 2. I think we're going to have to save this before we can decide which column we want it in. So we're going to place it in the Thesis nav menu is going to be in header row 2. And the search form is also going to be in header row 2. So now that we've said that, we can hit save again. And with that choice having been made, now we can choose which row it's going to go in. Now the Thesis nav menu, or the nav menu, is going to go in row 1. And we don't actually want to put the Thesis nav menu in there. We want to put this main menu in. This main menu is a menu that we've created under WordPress, under Appearance and Menus. So it's a WordPress menu. And any menu that we create using Appearance and Menus will show up in this drop-down, as well as the Thesis nav menu. But we're going to put the main menu there. We want it in row 2 and in column 1. And we have a choice of either the top or the bottom of the widget column. We're just going to There's actually not going to be anything inside of the widget column, so it doesn't really matter which one we choose, but we'll go ahead and choose top of the widget column for that one. And then while we're here, we'll do the same thing for the search form. The search form is going to go in row 2, but it's going in column 2 and at the top of the widget column. So now we can hit save again. And then there's just one other thing we want to do, which is eliminate the widgets from these two columns. We don't really, we remember those two columns are only, if we come over here and take a look at it, this is only 40 pixels tall. So we don't really need a, we don't have room for any widgets under here, so we don't want any widgets showing up. So we're going to turn the widgets off for row 2, column 1 and 2. And you do that by coming down to the row 2 settings and then widget column 1 settings and column 2 settings. And what we do is go all the way to the bottom of those settings and select check to remove the widgets from this widget column. We'll do the same thing in column 2. Scroll all the way down, check to remove the widgets from this widget column. So having checked that, let's just come up here to the top and hit save. And then we can come back over and just take a look at it here really quickly. So what we have is our two header areas, and then we have our navigation menu here and our search menu there. And so the next thing that we need to do is start specifying the sizes for this. So what we'll do next then is come over here and set the heights of those things. And remember, column 1 is 350 pixels, column 2 is 790 in row 1, and then column 1 is 840 and column 2 is 300 in row 2. So let's go ahead and do that. Widget columns. Actually, let's specify the height first. So the header row 1 height there was 180. It was 180 and 40. So row 1 height is 180 pixels. And then if we look at column 1 settings, that was 350 pixels. And then column 2 settings was 790. And then down to header row 2, we give it its height of 40 pixels. And then a column 1 setting of 840 and then 300. 840 and then column 2 settings of 300. Now this might not work perfectly the first time, but we'll adjust a little bit and see how it goes. Okay, take that and refresh it. Okay, so what's going on here is that the two sets of definitions that we've created are too big in order to show here, and so what we have to do is make sure that the definition for our of our page width in the header area is the right dimension. And so we said that needed to be 1140. So what we can do is come over to our full width backgrounds plugin and come over to the header area, customize header area.page, and scroll down here to the bottom. And by default, Thesis defines all of the page areas as exactly the same width. So Thesis calculates the width of the page and then makes header area.page, content area.page, and footer area.page the same width. But here we have a chance to explicitly set a different width for any one of those containers. And I'm just going to say 1140 for that. and hit save. And then we'll come back over and refresh. And these should just jump up there now. Okay, there we go. So we have specified